Hi, welcome to part 2 of our back to school STEM challenges. If you missed one, go back and watch it. I'll link it above. So with every challenge, I want to start by giving one good reason, or maybe two, why you should start the school year with STEM challenges. Today's reason, it goes perfectly with the whole trend of the growth mindset. So the idea that we don't need to be perfect with everything we do, that we keep trying, that we keep growing, that we don't have an expectation of ourselves that we're going to be perfect the first time. Using STEM challenges in your classroom establishes your room as a safe place to try, fail, and try again. And it really sets the tone for the whole school year. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Challenge 2 of 5 is called Apples Afar. And the basic premise is you're going to be building a cantilever. A cantilever. So what that is basically a structure that is supported on one end and juts out, and it supports a load on the other end. So for materials, again, we're going to be using symbols of the season, school supplies, and apples. Let's take a closer look. I discussed the details of the STEM Challenge cycle in the Apples Aloft video. You can click on the STEM Challenge cycle title above now, and it will take you to that section of Apples Aloft. So again, you're going to want to give yourself about 90 minutes. It's a little on the longer side, but since it's back to school and you want to take your time to establish procedures, I think that's reasonable. You can always break that over 2 days if you like. The basic idea, as it's written, is that the students will build their cantilever, and it has to support an apple that is either on top of, inside of, or hanging from. And if you have younger students, that might be too difficult. So you might want to consider not having an apple at all. We'll talk about that in a second. So you want to make sure that the apple stems, again, are fair. So either they are the same size or you just remove them all together. And the reason is that if they choose to secure the apple here, when they measure the span, notice I'm being very careful, I don't want it to break. Okay, it's a tough challenge. They're going to measure out to the farthest point of the apple, so this one will measure to the stem. As I was saying, if you have younger students, this might be a little bit too challenging. So what you would either want to do is adjust your expectations. They won't build it out quite this far. Maybe their cantilever will only go out to this position. Another thing that you can do is just have them build out and don't have them connect anything to the long end. And another thing you can do is just change what it is they have to connect at the end. So make them balance a school supply, maybe a crayon, maybe a pencil, maybe a glue stick. It's hard to balance. There we go. Maybe a binder clip, an eraser, you get the idea. So it doesn't have to be the apple. The apple does certainly lend some difficulty to it. So make the decision based on your kids. Obviously, you might not know your kids that well yet, so do it just based on a gut feel about their age level. You've probably taught it before. If you haven't, talk to some teachers at your new grade level and they'll help you figure it out. One other thing you want to think about before you start is if you're going to allow a brace. So a brace cantilever, you can see right here these pencils connecting provide a brace about halfway through, well, maybe it's not quite halfway through, I can't quite see, the cantilever. I have another brace up here. So you want to make sure that if you have younger students, for sure I wouldn't have any restriction on this. If you have maybe 7th or 8th grade students, you might want to consider not allowing a brace at all, so just a single cantilever. And make sure that they understand that if they do provide a brace, that it can't exceed past a certain point. You can choose if it's the halfway point or 3/4 or whatever. The reason is that the definition of a cantilever is that it's supported on one side and it juts out over the other. If we have a support that's on this end, then we've got 2 ends on the support and it's not a cantilever anymore. You know, there are a lot of options always to modify a design challenge, so just do what you feel is a good idea. You can always change your mind. The growth mindset is not just about the kids, it's also about us. So give yourself a little bit of room and flexibility to grow and to move and to learn new things. And, you know, if you mess up, it's not a big deal. Try again. This challenge is a great opportunity to talk about Newton's laws of motion. If you have 3rd grade, 5th grade, or middle school, you have standards in the Next Gen Science standards that are related to this. So you definitely want to take a few minutes before you do this challenge to review those for yourself and see where you can make those connections. Even kinder through second has some standards related to Newton's laws of motion. So if you are at that end, take a look. As always, one of the things you want to do with your prep is to make sure that you have looked for your cross-curricular connections if you are a self-contained teacher. And if you are a single subject teacher, look at your single subject standards and see what you can connect and get as much as you can out of the STEM challenge. So now you have the basics you need in order to start this challenge, Apples Afar, in your classroom. But if you want to know more, or you just want to save yourself a lot of planning and prep time, check out the resource right here. With Apples Afar, you get a whole lot for a whole little. Just a reminder, the grade levels are set as they are because the product includes modifications for grades 2 through 8. You'll get next-gen science standards for engineering and physical science, grades 2 through 8. In teacher tips, you'll find premise and setup, how to increase or decrease difficulty through the criteria and constraints list, measuring results, cross-curricular extension suggestions. Plus, you're going to find background on Newton's laws of motion and links to sites to help you and your students extend and understand. You'll find a materials list as well as criteria and constraints list, which is editable so you can tailor the challenge to your kids. For student handouts, there are 2 versions, 4-page expanded room for response for younger students and a 2-page condensed space paper saver version. You'll also find a set of group discussion questions. In the extension handouts, you'll find an estimate and measure worksheet for younger students and a measure and convert metric units for older students, plus process flows and math extensions. This resource is available individually and as part of a bundle. Links can be found in the description. So I hope you and your students have a great time with Apples Afar. I would love to hear about it. Message me in the comments or at any of my social media links, which are in the description. Make sure you like and subscribe. Next week we'll be back with challenge number 3, which is Apple Annihilator. See you next time.